have also been able to run budget surpluses. We've quadrupled the state's rainy day fund, almost quadrupled it since I became governor in 2019. I mean, I know there's a lot of economic uncertainty. You see the market fluctuating. People are predicting this and that. Look, if I knew what was going to happen, I'd be running a hedge fund, right? And I'd be making a lot more money than I make now. But the reality is we got to prepare for all kinds of contingencies. And so because we've put so much money away in our rainy day fund, Florida is going to be well positioned to handle whatever comes our way in the ensuing weeks, months, and years. We've also been able to cut taxes by a record amount since I've become governor, and I've been leading the charge now saying, as good as that's been, the best way to provide relief to taxpayers in Florida is to do property tax relief. I think it's very important that people recognize as Florida has boomed, property values have increased, and there's some benefit to that. Obviously, if your home increases in value, your wealth is increased. Makes it harder for first-time home buyers to afford. I do think you'll see that correct. These things go up and down. That's just the way it is. But you know, you have people who bought a house many years ago now having the assessed value higher and higher, and even though you have homestead protection, it still goes up. And people are paying more and more for property taxes, even when they've paid off their mortgage and everything. And it's almost like you don't even own your property, because if you don't pay rent to the government, they can come and kick you off out of your own house. And so we've said this is something that's really important to people, and we want to do certainly an amendment on the ballot in 2026 to be able to provide Floridians with really meaningful protections against what we've seen happen with property taxes. And I know that there's a lot of people that want to see that. I don't know how much we're seeing interest in that in, say, our Florida House of Representatives. Their view is, rather than just because I want to do property taxes, they don't want to do anything I want to do. And so they're basically trying to roll back what we've done for the last 6 years. But their view is they want to do a tax cut that is 3/4 of a penny of the sales tax, which is going to disproportionately benefit tourists and non-residents. Why would you be cutting taxes on Canadian tourists? I want to cut taxes on Florida homeowners. I'd let the tourists pay more for all I care. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody's asking for this, but I think this is just part and parcel of what the Florida House of Representatives is doing this legislative session. They are the least productive Florida House of Representatives that we have seen in modern Florida history. And I can tell you they're the least productive since I've been governor by a country mile. I mean, it is not even close in terms of what they're doing. One of the things I think it's important to know, they've done this budget, and they're negotiating with the Senate, and the Senate's done a better job on all this stuff, but it is what it is. They submitted a budget that is going to take about $500 million that's earmarked through dock stamps to major infrastructure projects. And the thing is, these are all over the state. They're in St. Lucie County, Indian River, they're in Miami-Dade, they're in all these places. That money is important because people have been planning on these projects are underway. It also allows us to draw more funding for the project. So it's not just, you may have $5 million for some road project, it's that $5 million triggers even more money. And they're looking to do away with that revenue that has gone to these projects and just dump it into general revenue. Well, that's going to throw those projects into turmoil. Did they campaign on doing that? We've done a lot to advance infrastructure priorities. We're a growing state. We have no choice but to do it, and that has been an important part of how we've been able to accelerate road projects, how we've been able to do improvements at airports and seaports, and nobody has ever talked about diverting those funds to general revenue. No one campaigned on that, but that's what their budget's doing. That will short-circuit projects in almost every community, major community throughout the state of Florida. I got a massive spreadsheet. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not sure that they realize that that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. Their budget also seeks to defund key elements of our Florida Highway Patrol. They defund body armor. They defund 90 positions. They defunded the pay raises that we had to do. And look, I think they deserve it. I think it's the right thing to do. But it's also, we have to do it if we want to keep good people, because they can make more money doing other things. So they've done that. we were down in Southwest Florida last week. You have these, you have one was a widow, the other's spouse of a trooper that got shot and survived, and they're just beside themselves that this is going on. But that's what they did in their budget. I was down in Naples yesterday highlighting, if you look over the last 6+ years, one of the things that we've done probably better than has ever been done in Florida is not just talk about, but deliver on a commitment to Everglades restoration and water quality improvements. We've had historic funding. We've either completed or broken ground on over 70 projects just since 2019. We have record amount of water now flowing to the Florida Everglades, down to Florida Bay. The salinity levels are the best they've been in recent times. We've obviated the need to do the types of discharges that you remember in 2016 and 2018 at a Lake Okeechobee that hit the east and west coast of Florida respectively during those 2 years. We're about to bring on the C-43 reservoir, which is west of Lake Okeechobee. We did the C-44 reservoir and completed that, which is on the St. Lucie side of Lake Okeechobee. So all these things have been really, really important. And our economy is really based on water. Our economy is based on making sure that the plumbing of the state is working as God intended it. And we've had huge support for many, many years in both houses of the legislature. Well, the budget for the Florida House of Representatives slashes support for Everglades and water quality by almost $500 million. I mean, that's a massive evisceration. And the question is that what they campaigned on? Did they tell you that? No, a lot of these guys campaigned taking credit for what they had been a part of, and deservedly so, to produce this historic level of support and to make all this progress that has been done. So that's what's going on. I think it's really disappointing to see. When you're doing this, with me, like we're going to be a law and order state. We're going to do Everglades water quality. We're going to make sure we're cutting taxes, that we're paying down debt. We're going to make sure we're doing infrastructure. We're going to make sure we're doing education, school choice. We've raised teacher pay. We're doing higher education, getting the woke out of higher education, all these different things. Like that's what I told you I'd do, that's what I've done, and many other things. I think you get into problems when you run on one banner and then get in and do different. And not only that, even sabotage the good works that's been done. They just did this education bill in the Florida House of Representatives to try to roll back the reforms that we have instituted over these last 6 years. They basically want to allow the universities to be captured, to allow institutional capture by the political left. That's what happens in other parts of the country when you don't have strong policies making sure that especially our universities are staying on track. And so they do this bill, I call it the Make Universities Woke Again Act, because that's basically what will end up happening. And they got a higher percentage of Democrats voting for it than Republicans voting for it. This is a supermajority Republican, almost 3-to-1 majorities, and yet they're losing more of their own members than the Democrats are losing. That's not what people voted for. That's not what they campaigned on. So we see all this, and they're trying to do a lot of undoing litigation and legal reform and tort reform that's been done. And if that agenda were to pass, you would see doctors leaving the state because they want to go after medical. You would see auto insurance rates. We actually have so far in 2025, average of 5% decrease in auto insurance premiums amongst the major carriers. That's not happening, I think, anywhere else in the country. The only reason it's happening is because of the litigation reform, because the cost of a lot of the lawsuits where you sue first, ask questions later, that is no longer being incentivized in Florida, and so it has made this, it's given consumers a break. But they want to overturn that. They want to overturn all this stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, who is asking for this? It's obviously more of a special interest play. So that's just, unfortunately, what's going on there. I know they're discussing the budget, and hopefully they're able to get to a place that makes sense for the people of Florida. But we're not turning back on the progress that we've made. We are not going to turn our back on law enforcement. We are not going to turn our back on Everglades restoration. We're not going to short circuit needed infrastructure programs. We're not going to let up on demanding property tax relief. We're not going to let up on demanding that the House of Representatives address the condo crisis that has been created through legislation that had been passed several years ago by the Florida legislature. You know, you have people that are getting hit with these crushing assessments. They're on fixed income. A lot of them own their condos outright. They can't afford to fork over $100,000. And this is being put forward basically because of policies that were implemented by the Florida legislature. So you have a responsibility to look at that, recognize those unintended consequences, and help people stay in their homes. That's what you should be doing, but they haven't been willing to do that yet either. So, which brings us to today. So we have different tools in our toolbox where we're able to promote infrastructure development, economic growth, and workforce training called the Job Growth Grant Fund. It's been very effective. It's been something that we're able to receive a lot of applications for and then make appropriate determinations about what can advance the ball forward. And so I'm proud to be here to announce a number of awards that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to do the awards. We'll have some folks speak. Then we'll do the check presentations after that. So I'm pleased to announce we're awarding $4 million to Indian River State College to support the development of the Institute for Industrial Manufacturing and Production Training. This new institute will offer accelerated hands-on training in high-demand fields, including quality control and assurance, metrology and inspection, system maintenance, and process automation. These programs will directly support the growing needs of manufacturers in the region and prepare students for careers in advanced manufacturing. So I think this is exactly what we're talking about. Since I've been governor, we've added more than 100,000 manufacturing jobs in the state of Florida. We've increased manufacturing businesses by over 30%. And these are jobs that I think are really meaningful. You know, some people talk about making things like, there are certain things that are made, like T-shirts in Vietnam. I'm not sure that you'd have a lot of people in Florida that would be lining up to do that. But when you start talking about advanced manufacturing, you're talking about jobs where one person can support a family. This is something that's really, really significant. So I'm glad that we've really become a growing center for manufacturing, and we want to continue to do that as we go forward. Number two, we're awarding $4.9 million to Miami-Dade College to launch new aircraft mechanic training programs. These programs will provide students with a direct pipeline into maintenance, repair, and operations, requiring minimal additional training after graduation. Classes are expected to begin in 2025, with more than 450 students projected to complete the program in the coming years. Now, aircraft maintenance, it's a huge, huge demand in the state of Florida. I mean, we're definitely the aviation capital of the United States, certainly when you talk about private aviation and all this stuff. So there are a lot of opportunities, but then it also bleeds into things like what's going on in the Space Coast. There's people that go through even high school programs for things like aviation mechanics, and they can get hired by Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, right out of high school. I mean, that's happened. So this is something I think that's really, really meaningful. I'm proud of Miami-Dade for stepping up and offering students this really important opportunity. In addition to the workforce development grants, we're also going to make two targeted infrastructure investments. First, $2.1 million to the Sebring Airport Authority to reconstruct and resurface nearly 3/4 of a mile of Webster Turn Drive, a key roadway serving the industrial area of the multimodal logistics center. This will help with logistics efficiency and better connect local businesses to the airport. Their anticipated jobs are 100 new jobs, fiscal impact of $3.4 million once this project is complete. And finally, we're awarding $3.5 million to Wakulla County for the development and construction of 2 new county-owned buildings at Opportunity Park. These facilities, measuring 100,000 and 150,000 square feet, will attract high-skill, high-wage jobs in targeted industries and to further support economic growth in the region. This builds on the $4.5 million awarded to Wakulla County in December of last year through our Rural Infrastructure Fund. Today's investments in infrastructure are projected to have an economic impact of more than $13 million, and our investments in workforce development will provide up to $64 million in wages for participants of these new programs. So our commitment to economic opportunity, economic growth, strong infrastructure, which serves as a foundation of both of those, remains very steadfast. And today is a great day to deliver these awards. And I want to bring up our Commerce Secretary, Alex Kelly, who will say a little bit more about that. And then we'll hear from Dr. Moore from right here. Thanks.
Well, Governor, thank you so much. It's great to be back here at Indian River State College. Governor, thank you for your unwavering focus on investments that drive our workforce, job creation, and business formation. Truly, really very, very hardline results that have been delivering. And thank you, Governor, for really leaning in to, I think, what also makes Florida so unique. And you said it both at the macro level. You know, we're now the 16th largest economy in the world, and at the same time at the micro level, these unique sectors of our economy here in Florida that I think are really part of the special part of the Florida story: military and defense, aerospace and aviation, transportation, shipping and logistics, and really also manufacturing. Governor, you've made the state a manufacturing state. As you mentioned, we now have more than 434,000 manufacturing jobs in the state. We're about 8,000 past our neighbors to the north in Georgia. Not that we're competitive, but we're a little competitive. And we have now more than 27,000 manufacturing establishments throughout the state. Both of those numbers, as you mentioned, are the fastest growing in the United States. And a lot of those jobs, sir, as you pointed out, are in precision and advanced manufacturing, including right here at Indian River State College. That was just something simply not true 10 years ago. That's a dynamic change in the state, because it's not just manufacturing, it's the kind of manufacturing industry 4.0 that pay great salaries, great opportunities for young people and for those who are looking to elevate their careers. And I think, Governor, these investments, as you know, these investments today really do symbolize the kind of investments that you've been making, that Florida's been making these last 6 years to elevate key sectors throughout the state. You know, as you mentioned, regarding McCullough County, those manufacturing investments there, they're going to support military, defense, law enforcement, and other key sectors that are really, true to heart here in the state of Florida. Indian River State College, the investments here, likewise, they're going to support military, defense, law enforcement, related manufacturing needs. The award to Miami-Dade College. Miami-Dade College has worked very closely with AAR Corp., a company that hires many veterans into its workforce. And both here at Indian River and at Miami-Dade, these young people going into these programs, these programs were designed with industry partnering. These young people are going straight into $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year jobs with great career opportunities after that. And frankly speaking, the Miami-Dade investment too in airframe and power plant mechanics is absolutely critical. Governor, as you mentioned, the state is just booming with its growth in aerospace and aviation. The kind of sophisticated work that we need that workforce to do, whether it's on the body of aircraft and aerospace vehicles, or whether it's the unique and challenging and evolving systems within the aircraft, we absolutely need that airframe and power plant mechanic workforce. And the Sebring Airport Authority, Sebring Airport, I had a chance to go to the Sebring Airport about a year ago, and while we're talking about an airport, we're actually talking about also one of the really most impressive manufacturing hubs that I've seen in southern central Florida. And really that investment is going to help build out, I think, an inland port concept there that's going to end up serving and supporting a lot of our ports around the state as product can move off those ports to that inland port and then be distributed from there, and of course to support the manufacturing that's there. And I'll say, Governor, we just really want to thank you again for your intentional focus and your leadership on these key drivers. Not just infrastructure and workforce, but infrastructure and workforce in a way that's going to absolutely accelerate job creation, accelerate what communities can do to achieve their own vision for themselves, and really give Floridians, young and old alike, a chance at great careers. I've had an opportunity to visit each one of these partners. Dr. Moore, you and your team and the team at Miami-Dade College quite frequently. And I can say this about all four partners in McCullough, in Highlands, here in the Treasure Coast, and in Miami-Dade. These are four partners who absolutely, I'm going to paraphrase you, sir, they move with velocity and purpose to create opportunity to secure our state and secure our nation. So again, thank you, Governor, for your leadership, and thank you, everyone.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to talk to you about schedule this because you never want to be the guy before dessert or the guy before the check gets handed out. That's the bad place to be. Governor, thank you for your leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Timothy Moore, President of Indian River State College. My honor to have you here today. Governor, thank you for taking your time on a very busy schedule. There's a lot of places you could be, but you chose to be here with us in the Treasure Coast in Okeechobee to talk about economic investments and leadership from your office. I want to take a few minutes, sir, with privilege to introduce my Board of Trustees that are present here today. These people volunteer their time with us. The governor appoints them, the Senate confirms them, and they dedicate a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of leadership to making sure this college is resourced and properly aligned with the governor's vision of how we're going to drive workforce in the future of this state for many decades to come. So Krista Luna is our chair. Krista, thank you so much, ma'am, for your leadership out of Okeechobee County. Thank you. Ms. Susie Karen here from St. Lucie County. Susie, thank you, ma'am. Trustee George, thank you, sir, for your leadership out of Martin County. And lastly, today we're joined by Milo Thornton. I want to just hold applause for just a second. Sir, you have dual roles here. You've come from this community. You are a shining example of what can happen when education and intent and faith all join together. You wear the badge. We thank you for what you do in our service to our college, to our community, to ensure that you are the difference between sanity and insanity in this great economy of ours, great country. Thank you, sir, for your service. I'm going to put a little shine on the boss here for just a second. Sir, your leadership has been transformative. I came here in 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You were unwavering. You are a fact-based leader that made decisions not with emotion, but based on the fact predicate of what was the right thing to do for citizens and their liberty. That's remarkable. Hurricanes. Governor basically says, hold my beer, I'll put that bridge up in 3 days, here we go, and he's gone. It's a great thing, sir. Your leadership has been transformative. And you're doing the same thing with workforce. Workforce is remarkable because it is transformative. We in this college take people at their God-given level and produce skills to get them into the workforce and change their lives. Sir, they become productive citizens because of your leadership. I also want to point out the governor is a military service member, one of only 6 governors in the nation. Well, not the one in Minnesota, but nonetheless. Sir, thank you for your service. Might not have been the branch of service. I would prefer Army is better than Navy, but nonetheless. Hang on now. We're not going to get into an argument here right now. Also, sir, with your permission, I'd like to give a shout out to Lieutenant General Frank Labuti, a U.S. Marine Corps retiree. Frank's got some health challenges. We give him a shout out and Godspeed because he is an essential part of our foundation leadership as well. Sir, we're honored to receive this award from you and your office, Secretary Kelly. Thank you for your leadership, sir. It's awesome. We're here to increase the workers that are prepared to enter this workforce, make money, do things. We're also proud to support the marine and aviation and the Second Amendment-based industries in our state because that's the foundation of our Constitution. And sir, we wouldn't be able to do this without your leadership. You sit there and deliberately drive equation to make sure that opportunities occur for all of us in the state of Florida, and I cannot commend you highly enough for that. The session's a little chippy this year. The governor alluded to that. That's part of a beautiful dynamic called democracy. But it's also time to get the people's work done. When the House is trying to zero out workforce and job growth grants, that's not a starter for this state. We've got to, as citizens, advise our elected leaders to do the right thing, to give the governor the ability to do the things that we're doing today, which is invest and grow and make Americans have the ability to achieve their full God-given potential. And lastly, sir, if you're not busy next Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I invite you to come to graduation, shake hands with the Americans whose lives you changed, because let me tell you something, I got 1,700 kids walking next week, and it's because of your leadership, your support. Buildings like this and this kind of grant, sir, make the difference. Thank you, sir. God bless you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Krista? Chair Looney, you know the governor?
All right, here we go. Once you get here.
Chair, you're ready. Thank you, sir.
There we go.
Jimmy, Slimming Lens, please.
All right, good job.
Thank you,
There
sir.
go.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Miami-Dade. Yeah, of course. Congrats. Good deal. All right. Thank you. What color? Yeah, of course. Get right in there. There we go. Good deal. Congratulations. All right, Sebring. Congrats. Yep. All right, good deal. Thank you. Well, thanks. I think that this is really meaningful. I'm excited about the impact that this is going to have, and we've shown that this type of stuff can make a big impact when you've got institutions like Indian River and Miami-Dade that really want to go get them and equip their students with really meaningful skills that are going to lead to them to be able to expand their horizons and not only do well for themselves, but contribute to our state and our economy in a really meaningful way. So hats off to you guys. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I also just want to say, you see the stuff that, gets spewed out in different things, and that's just kind of the politics that things are doing. But, yesterday there was this fabricated report by some of these partisan outlets about the Agency for Healthcare Administration, one of our state agencies, doing a settlement with this company, Centene, who's one of the Medicaid providers. And they were told, hey, the agency is going to be releasing a letter with the documentation that kind of is going to explain this. And they went ahead and they published and they tried to, create and manufacture a narrative. Well, then what happens a few hours later? The agency puts out a document. It goes through the different agreement. The agreement they reached with the company was for about $56 million to recoup for this PBM Medicaid thing. It's there, it's documented. And then they got a $10 million private donation on top of that, which is what the agency said from the beginning. And so this is an attempt to try to manufacture a narrative where there's really nothing there. Why are they doing it? It's all because they want to try to impugn our Hope Florida program. That's why they're doing it. It's all political. And Hope Florida actually doesn't cost any money. It has been, and our First Lady led the charge on this. This was her kind of ingenuity that led to this and said, okay, we've had for 60 years welfare programs that have had the effect of keeping people on programs where a bureaucrat that's working in these agencies' job is to find as many programs as someone may qualify for and then sign them up. The problem with that is oftentimes that doesn't serve to be a true hand up that leads people on a pathway to self-sufficiency. At the same time, she recognized, and I think we all kind of get, that there's a lot of great resources in the state of Florida and throughout our country, but in the state of Florida, our churches, charities, businesses in the community that want to be impactful, even individual volunteers who will jump at the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of somebody who's in need. And so the Hope Florida insight is, let's transform the bureaucrats from trying to cut checks and put people on programs to being navigators, hope navigators, that will navigate the people in need to all the resources that will be available in the community. And so if you have a single mom who may have fallen on hard times, maybe needs a place to stay, those needs go into the Hope portal, and then the Hope partners, many of them which are religious institutions, but certainly not all, they then get it. And a lot of times you'll have a church come and help, or you'll have a charity come and help, or you'll have all these things. And so the net result of that is you've had 30,000 people which have gotten off means-tested welfare, and it's saved the taxpayers $100 million and likely to save over $1 billion over a 10-year period. That is a great success for the state of Florida. It's a success that other states are trying to emulate, and we have people make pilgrimages from other states to try to learn about it, but it didn't cost you anything as taxpayers. All it did was reimagine the proper role of government. We know government can't be all things to all people. That's failed. They did a war on poverty in the 1960s. If that had succeeded, we wouldn't have poverty. And yet it ended up entrenching a lot of this. So this is a better way. This is a better way for people in need. Their horizons will be expanded. They will do better. But it's also a better way for taxpayers. And so you look at some of the problems you see with the budget in Washington, this type of model would be better for people as well as save a lot of money. So that's what this is motivating. It's a political attack against the successful program and against the First Lady, because I think a lot of people are threatened by the success of the program. It upends some of their ideological commitments. It shows that she's actually made a difference. I know there's people that are threatened by that. So I think the Hope Florida program has been something that's been a tremendous success for the state. We want to continue to build off that, and we are going to be making announcements to do just that. So when you're over the target, people come at you, but this program has been successful, and I'm proud of all the good that it's done. Okay, have any questions out there? Yes.
Whitney Pearls at TC Palm. Thank you for coming to Trader Coast and taking questions from local media. You talked about trying to reduce home property taxes. And when I talk to local officials, there's concern that that might impact their budgets. So how do you balance that need from local governments to fund their programs with lowering the tax burden for residents?
It's a great question. So one, I would just point out that if you look over the last 5 or 6 years, local governments have had a gusher of property tax revenue coming in because new home sales are assessed at higher values. They're constantly assessing your property higher. And even if you have homestead, it doesn't mean you don't get any property increase. Like, you will pay more. And over a 5 or 6 year period, even with that homestead cap, you're definitely paying, significant amount more. So that's what's happening. And you've had counties that have had virtually no population increase on net, like Broward, have a massive increase in their budget. And the question is why? What are they doing with that money? So one of the things that we're working with the legislature on, I think the Senate is receptive to it. Obviously the House, doesn't want to be productive on any of this stuff. But we want to do, so we're doing voluntary doging of local governments because we want taxpayers to be able to see what is truly necessary. I mean, obviously, public safety is necessary. There's things that are necessary. Nobody is disputing that. But I can tell you, when you look at the growth of these budgets, I mean, it has been significant. And there's some counties that have population growth, so you have to definitely account for that. We have had inflation. You got to account for that. But I think if we're able to go through that exercise this summer, I think we'll be able to show folks that actually, if you just return budgets to what they were a few years ago, you wouldn't be able to miss a beat on the core services, but you'd be able to give people an enormous amount of relief. So we're going to be working over the next however many months. We're going to be listening to a lot of people to craft a proposal. And here's the thing, property taxes are a local issue by and large. There's a little bit that the state does for education, and I wanted to cut that this year because we have enough money to fund the education, so we could fully fund the education and give you a property tax cut. And the House of Representatives has not been receptive to that. But I think, though, it's mostly local. So you got to go to the ballot, and you need constitutional protection. So we're going to look to see what is the most likely to pass and what will have the maximum impact on property owners. And particularly, look, I want to cut property taxes and give protection to Florida residents, right? If someone's here and they have their 5th house, they have houses around the country and one's in Florida, I don't lose as much sleep over that being taxed, right? But I do lose sleep over hardworking Floridians, retirees, who are constantly having to cut a check to the government just to be able to live on their home. So I think it's something that people want to see action on. We're going to be very thoughtful about it. I want to be as bold as possible, but I also want something that's going to pass, that will pass the legislature and eventually be ratified for the voters. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. But to say we're not going to do any relief on property taxes, to me, that is not acceptable. And I also think it's just unfair. You buy a house, you pay, so maybe you bought a house 10 years ago for $350 grand. Now someone's coming and telling you it's worth $900,000. Well, you didn't do a market transaction for who's to tell you what it's worth in a given instance? You only know what it's worth when there's a transaction where someone's a willing buyer and a willing seller come together. And it's basically an unrealized gain that they're taxing you on, which I don't think is appropriate. So I think this is a great conversation. I can tell you, if you ask Florida residents, would you rather see property tax relief or this sales tax that's going to benefit a lot of tourists and non-residents? I mean, it's like 95% say they want the property tax relief. It's not even close that that's the case. So I think we've got to do it. I think it remains to be seen exactly how that's going to look, how that will appear on your ballot. but we need to do that in 2026. Now, in the intermediate time, I've called for the state to roll back local property tax as best we can, given the authority that we have, and I think that would be a good first step, but ultimately the solution is going to be to go on the ballot and provide protections to all of our Florida residents. All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it.